That's why we're here today. And we'll skip this one because we've already done our introductions. So our objective for this session today is to explore the benefits and the methods of using the Introduction to Color Codes portfolio and the Introduction to Ozobot Blockly portfolio. What is it anyway? What is this portfolio curriculum that we've been talking about? Well, it's a step-by-step instruction to programming with either color codes or Ozobot Blockly that provides a solid foundation in using Ozobot. It's actually a printed spiral-bound book where students can manage all their Ozobot activities in one place. So why in the world did we decide to create these books in the first place? What problems are we solving? Well, we came up with quite a list of problems to be solved. So the first thing is many schools and districts have limits on printing, especially color printing. And many of the activity sheets for the lessons, the introduction lessons, have like a color key or a color code key on the page. And so even though there's letters underneath those colors, those color blocks, it's really helpful to have the actual colors show up on the page. So printing in color can sometimes be an issue. So with these books, everything is printed there for you and no standing around waiting at the printer / copier in the teacher lounge, which is, as we all know, not the best use of a teacher's time. And since teachers have very little extra time to do that, having those pages already printed will save them a lot of prep time. No loose activity sheets to keep track of. They don't need an extra binder to keep track of all their Ozobot papers. As far as the content goes, there's a section before and after the video lesson. So these portfolios are based on the Intro to Color Code series or the Intro to Ozobot Blockly series of lessons that are found in the lesson library. There's activities before that video lesson and activities after that video lesson. Provides more in-depth study for each one of those topics that is taught in that video lesson. Another benefit of these books is that you can do the activities as a class all together, or individuals can work at their own pace. Since they have a link to the video instruction during that one section of each lesson, students can actually just either, if they are on a tablet, there is a QR code that they can go to. If they're on a laptop or a Chromebook, there's a short link that they can type in to a browser window, and the link is a public link. So students don't need an account in Classroom. They don't need any other login or password information to access that video lesson link. It is a public link. So if they've got the link, they can access it. One of the other great things about these curriculum books is that it allows a different funding pool to be used than the hardware. So when you're buying bots, it's a hardware piece. So that usually comes from a different funding pool than a book might, or a workbook or that sort of thing. So just another thing to keep in mind when requesting to purchase these is that you can use a different funding pool oftentimes. Well, what about for students? Well, we've all had that one student who's organizationally challenged, who cannot keep track of papers for their life. And so I had one student once who we just had a ritual. Every Friday, we would go through his little cubby and we would go through his desk and we would organize all his math papers, all his ELA papers, all his science papers, but we had to do it every week in order to keep him organized. And that was just one of his challenges. So with these, there's no loose papers. The students can keep all of their Ozobot stuff in one place without having to do lots of organization and searching. Another great thing about these is students, as they work through this, it's a really great way for them to showcase their learning over time. If you've worked with color codes before, it takes some practice to get the lines just right and the color codes just right. So when they're finished with the book, they can go back to the beginning and say, wow, look at that difference between when I first started and when I'm done. I can really, my color coding has improved, and they can see that difference from the beginning to the end. Again, it's an opportunity for students to work at their own pace if that's something that is applicable to your situation. And they'll have a deeper understanding of each of the concepts, because it's not just that video lesson. There's a priming section where they get ready to go. And then there's a making sure they understood what they what they just learned in that video section. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. It also encourages students to take ownership of their personal learning. They have that book, they can read the sections, they can fill it out, they can ask questions, they can make sure that they understand what they're learning. So taking ownership, that's a really big plus when students finally figure out, my parents aren't making me learn this, my teachers aren't making me learn this, I'm learning this because I want to learn this. And that's kind of a big step for students. And I really feel like these portfolios can facilitate that a little bit. What about for everybody else? Well, for everybody, these portfolios, they extend the lessons, the activities extend the lessons beyond what's in the lesson library. There is kind of a misconception that all of the materials that are in the portfolios are free in the lesson library. That's actually not true. The part of the portfolios that are free in the lesson library are those video lessons. The pre-work and the post-work are not in the lesson library. If you're working with multiple ages of students, for example, if you have a blended classroom with 2 grades, or you have an after-school program and you're working with 3 or 4 grades of students, the content is the same for each one of these grade levels. However, each grade level, the extended activities are all differentiated by grade. So to say that another way, these portfolios are all intended by grade level to meet the needs of students with little to no previous experience with Ozobot, no matter what grade they're in. So even if they're in 5th grade, this is an introductory portfolio intended to get them started with Ozobots. Well, let's get into what these actually look like on the inside. I've included the table of contents. On the left is the table of contents for the color codes book, and on the right is the table of contents for the Ozobot Blockly book. You'll notice that the sequence of the portfolio follows the sequence of the Intro to Color Codes and the Intro to Ozobot Blockly lessons that are currently in the lesson library. And each lesson in the portfolio is broken into sections. So these sections are a getting started section. Let's see, there we go. There's the getting started section. This section is intended to activate prior knowledge, and it primes students for what's coming up in the video lesson. The video lesson is accessed either, again, by that QR code if students are on a tablet and they can actually scan that QR code, or you'll notice here there's the little short link, ozo.bot/cc1 is the first color code lesson. So you'll notice all of the lessons have that little short link, and it starts ozo.bot/ and then whatever the lesson specific is will be what that code is on the end. So real easy to type in for students. So that video lesson, the time to explore, is the video lesson from the lesson library. There's, again, no login for students. The link is public, so anyone with the link can access the page. If the lesson has activity sheets, those are located in the portfolio. So there's your no having to print option there. And the teacher guide, there's a teacher guide that goes with each one of these student portfolios as well. The teacher guide has the direct instruction. So if the teacher doesn't want to use the video lesson for whatever reason, there are instructions in the teacher guide to walk them through each one of these lessons. The next section is called Check Your Understanding. Oh, there's the activity sheets for this particular lesson. And those, again, are in the portfolio. The Check Your Understanding section is, in this case, it's a word search, and they then need to take the words. They're in the word bank up at the top of the page, and they'll fill in the blanks, and they'll find the words in the word search. There are different activities that students will do to check their understanding. So the next option, or the next item in the portfolio, is generally a debugging challenge, where students will basically continue checking their understanding of what they just learned. And then there's also a coding challenge. In this first lesson of the basic training, students will read the instructions, and then on this particular one, they will actually draw their own shape and run their bot on the shape to ensure that they've drawn it correctly. So each one of these lessons actually will have the Check Your Understanding, the debugging challenge, and coding challenge with them. In the Ozobot Blockly version, there's also another section called Reflection Time. And it allows students to reflect on the activities and identify future things to explore. We have a teacher guide that goes with each one of these. The main way that you can tell these apart, because the covers are very close, they look very similar, is the teacher guide has a little blue teacher guide right under the title. It's similar to the student version on the inside as well. It contains possible solutions, and the Time to Explore section includes that video link, but it also includes the direct instruction in case a teacher doesn't want to use the video. Also included in the teacher guide in the front is a pacing guide, so teachers can go through the lessons that they want to use there and make their plan for the semester or for a term, however they are, however long they have to use Ozobots in their classrooms. And in those pacing guides, there are some content integrated lessons that are listed as well that teachers can use. There's also in both the Blockly and in the color code section, or color code book, a section in the very back. It's an informational letter that you're welcome to copy and send home with your students so that their families know what they're working on. So who are these portfolios for? Well, we have developmentally appropriate options for kindergarten through 5th grade. The pacing allows for a full semester of study in a class that does 1-hour sessions once a week. So depending on your situation, if you see these, you could actually shorten that time. If you only have the kids for 9 weeks, you could do a little bit more in each session and cover the entire portfolio in that time. So it really depends on your situation. Teachers who want a whole unit dedicated to Ozobot or coding can use these. After-school programs, these are fantastic for after-school programs, mainly because it allows the students to work at their own pace and takes a huge burden off the facilitators as far as printing and copying and keeping track of who's doing what. And after-school programs, this is a fantastic way to integrate some programming into those programs. Teachers who use Ozobots multiple times a year and want a really efficient way to manage their activity sheets, this is a really great option because everything's all in one place. All right. Are there any questions in the chat that we can answer at this point?
There's some folks asking about blank
Okay.
student worksheets, Jen. So the question is, Are there blank student worksheets in the teacher guide also? I see all students in K through 5 and cannot imagine my district getting books for all students.
There are not blank worksheets in the teacher guide. These aren't actually meant to be copied. They are copyrighted, so each student would need their own copy.
And I want to just clarify, this question has come up in a few different ways in the chat, that we will not be taking any of our free lessons that are currently in the lesson library off of there. So those will remain free for you. Those are always going to stay there, and we'll continue to add free lesson content there. So the workbooks that Jen is speaking to, again, are more just a comprehensive curriculum if that is the direction that you choose to go in. And if not, you may continue just to access those free one-off lessons in the library.
I also noticed a question about paperweight. Carly asks, if I give, what is the paperweight? I give students a placemat when completing worksheets because markers often bleed through. It is a heavier weight paper. The student books actually have a blank side on any worksheets that you're doing color codes with. So it's, I should have one right here and I do not. So the activity sheet is one-sided, blank on the other side. So I always encourage people to open the book so only that one page is out so it doesn't bleed through to the page on the bottom. And they may still need a placemat, but the paper is a heavier weight. So, all right, so let's keep moving here. If you are ready to order these and you have been in touch with your account representative for your region, you're welcome to contact them to place an order with a PO or to get a quote. You'll notice here I've got the website up. If you don't know who your account rep is and you still want to place an order with a PO or get a quote, you can go to this virtual demo and that will put you in touch with your account representative for your region. Also, we have our shop.ozobot.com on the website also if you want to place a direct order. The student portfolios are sold in packages of 12 portfolios for $179.88, and the teacher guide is sold separately. You'll notice down here at the bottom, we have a discount code for you, OzoWeb20, to receive 20% off all portfolios on shop.ozobot.com through the end of March. Are there any other questions about the portfolios currently?
Real quick, are you able to buy just maybe like 6 of them, or do you have to buy a whole set?
Unfortunately, at this time, you have to buy the whole set of 12. They haven't been breaking those up. Good question. Thank you. All right. We have some upcoming webinars. We have The Future is Bright with our color code guide on April 29th. We've got some updated color code guidelines to help you be more successful with your Ozobots and color codes. So that's a good one to, if you're focusing on color codes with your kids, that's a great one to attend. And we also have another webinar coming up in May on the 20th. Following the Lines of Innovation All Summer Long. And that one is a little more focused on where to find Ozobots during the summer and maybe a few summer Ozobot lessons. And some of the other things we are working on currently, our fantastic curriculum developer, Jordan, is working on a Blockly series called the Blockly Builders series. And it's a series of lessons that is specifically designed to help students grow their understanding of Ozobot Blockly. So with these particular lessons, they probably go through the intro to Ozobot Blockly lessons, and then these Blockly Builders lesson series would go from there. So they could continue to build their understanding of Ozobot Blockly. We also have some updated pacing guides, and those are available on the website soon. And the pacing guides that are located in the teacher book of the portfolio, the teacher guide of the portfolios, that is the updated, that is the current, maybe I should say this differently. It's the current version of the portfolios as of the printing of the book. So since those were printed this last fall, these updated pacing guides will be great for going forward from now once they get up on the website. And then a very exciting new product we have is called challenge mats. These are going to be 24 by 32 inch neoprene mats that are printed on one side, and they will include a couple of different packs of activity cards, one that's an introduction to Ozoblockly, so students can develop more of their Blockly prowess using these really fun themed mats. We'll be introducing the Mars mat, the ocean mat, a basketball, and a soccer mat. And those will be out pretty soon. Not really sure of the release date on those yet, but keep an eye out for those. And now we have a little more time for questions. What other questions have come up?
Jen, there's a question here that I'll read to you
Okay.
from Betty. She asked, if you purchase a whole set, what are the grade levels? Most of my teachers have multi-grades in their classrooms.
So each set of 12 is all the same grade level. So if you purchase a set of first grade, it'll be all first grade. We don't have any mixes of grade levels at this point. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Most of
Okay.
the schools that I work with are like, they'll be K4 classrooms or 5-8 classrooms.
Okay.
So that there's like two of
Right.
each grade in a classroom.
Right. Yeah, that makes it a little difficult.
I will say, Betty, that as Jen mentioned, the coding concepts are quite similar across the grades. We did vary like just the developmental level of how the questions are asked. So please do shoot one of us an email, because I think we could find a way to make these work for teachers who have multiple grades in the classroom. Just so shoot one of us an email and we'll work with you on this.
Okay. Okay, and was the email the ones that you guys responded to? I missed it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm typing mine into the chat, both of them into the chat right now.
So Maggie asked, how many activity pages are there per lesson? And how does that number change in books from grades K through 5? Activity pages per lesson. So there's generally 1 to 2 pages in the getting started section, 1 to 2 pages for the time to, the time to explore. Generally, the check your understanding is 1 page. The debugging challenge is generally 1 page, and the coding challenge is 1 page. So somewhere between 5 to 7 pages per topic. The younger grades have a much bigger font than the older grades. So the amount of content is very similar, but I would say for the younger grades, it just takes more pages because of the size of the font and the size of the images on them. Melissa asks, what would you say is the minimum amount of time it would take to get through the curriculum if I see students for 45 minutes once a week? I don't have an entire semester to commit only to Ozobots. I would say the video lesson section, the time to explore, probably would take 15 to 20 minutes, and then you could probably get through the getting started and the time to explore section in 45 minutes, depending on your kids, obviously. If they're really organized and they come in and they're ready to go, and they only take a minute or two to clean up at the end of class, you could probably get through 2 parts of that in 1 class period. Melissa, I hope that answered your question. So it would probably take, in other words, it would probably take 2 class periods to get through an entire section of the portfolio. Unless you have kids that work really fast. I guess it really depends on your kids. What other questions do you all have? I'm going to stop sharing because you guys don't. It's better to look at faces than the words. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you have the opportunity to take advantage of that discount code, OzoWeb20 on the web store before the end of the month. Right. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. There you will see a short survey pop up after we hit that end button. So if you would please take a few minutes to fill that out, that helps us greatly. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you all.